What if you found a Ferrari or a house in your pocket change? Some Lincoln pennies are worth that much. Today, we're showing you the top 10 most expensive and rare pennies that could be worth thousands. Grab your magnifying glass, let's find these hidden treasures. The 1961 D. Lincoln Memorial cent might look just like any other penny you've seen 100 times. It's small, copper-colored, and has President Abraham Lincoln's face on the front. But don't be fooled, under the right conditions, this little coin can be worth up to $4,400. First off, let's talk about what the coin actually is. The 1961 is the year the coin was made, and the small letter D under the date tells us it was minted in Denver, Colorado. The U.S. Mint has several locations, and the Denver Mint is one of the biggest. In 1961, they produced over 1.7 billion of these pennies. That's right, billion with a B. So this coin isn't rare just because of how many were made. In fact, it's very common if you're just talking about circulation. So why are some of these coins worth thousands of dollars? It all comes down to something collectors care a lot about: condition. In the coin collecting world, condition is everything. A coin that has been in your pocket, tossed in a jar, or sat in a drawer for decades probably has scratches, smudges, and dull color. That's what collectors call a circulated coin. These are usually worth just face value, 1 cent. But then there are the rare coins that were never used. These are called uncirculated coins, and they can still look exactly like they did the day they were made. No scratches. No wear. Just a shiny, flawless surface. Now, imagine a 1961 D penny that not only looks brand new, but is also nearly perfect under magnification. That's what collectors are paying big money for. Coins like this are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, and the closer you get to 70, the more valuable it becomes. A 1961 D penny graded at MS 67 red, mint state 67 with a bright red copper color, can bring in over $4,000 at auction. Here's what you should look for if you think you might have a valuable one. First, check the date. It must say 1961, and directly below that, there should be a small D. That's the Denver Mint mark. Next, examine Lincoln's portrait. A high-value coin will have very sharp details. Look at his hair, beard, and coat. Turn the coin over and look at the Lincoln Memorial. On valuable coins, the lines will be crisp and clear. You should be able to count the steps easily. Finally, check the color. The most valuable coins have a bright red tone. If your penny looks dull or has turned brown, it's not likely to be one of the top-tier coins. If your 1961 D penny checks all those boxes, don't just toss it in your change jar. It might be worth sending to a professional coin grading service, like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company. They can officially grade the coin and help you understand its true value. So, while most 1961 D pennies are only worth 1 cent, a rare few in perfect condition can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. It just goes to show sometimes the most ordinary-looking things can hide the greatest value. The 1963 D. Lincoln Memorial penny is one of those coins that might seem like just another old penny, until you take a closer look. While it was produced in large numbers and is still pretty common to find, under the right conditions, this little coin can be worth up to $14,500. So how does that happen? Let's break it down in a simple way. The D under the date stands for Denver, which is where the coin was made. In 1963, the Denver Mint struck more than 1.7 billion Lincoln cents. That's a huge number, which means the coin isn't rare based on how many were made. You can still find these in coin rolls or even in loose change. But here's where things get interesting. Even though it's common in general, some of these coins are worth a lot because of two things: how perfect the coin looks, which collectors call condition, and whether the coin has any rare minting errors. Let's start with condition. Collectors love coins that are in near-perfect shape. These are called uncirculated coins. That means they've never been used in regular spending, they were saved right away and kept safe from scratches, dirt, or damage. The best of these are graded on a scale from 1 to 70. The closer to 70, the more perfect the coin is. A 1963 penny graded at MS 67 red, which means it's in mint condition and still has its bright red copper color, is what brought in that amazing $14,500 price at auction. That bright red color is super important too. Over time, copper pennies usually turn brown or dull from age and exposure. But if a coin still has its original red luster from the mint, it's worth a lot more. The combination of a high grade and original red color makes these coins really stand out to collectors. Now, let's talk about mint errors, another reason this coin can be valuable. Some 1963 pennies were made with double dies, which is a type of error where part of the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice. This usually shows up in the date, the word Liberty, or In God We Trust. If the letters or numbers look like they have a slight shadow or doubling, that's a good sign you might have a valuable error coin. Another thing to watch for is an off-center strike. This is when the coin wasn't lined up correctly in the minting machine, so the design is shifted to one side. The more off-center it is, especially if you can still see the full date, the more valuable it becomes. So how can you tell if your 1963 penny is worth something? Here's what to look for: the coin should say 1963 with a small d underneath. Look at the front carefully for any doubling in the letters or numbers. Check that the coin is still a bright, shiny red, not brown or dull. Make sure the coin is in very good shape, no dents, scratches, or stains. Even without errors, a perfect, red, uncirculated 1963 penny can be worth hundreds or even thousands. That's what makes this coin a real sleeper hit, easy to overlook, but full of potential if you know what to look for. The 1966 Lincoln Memorial penny might not stand out at first glance, but if you know what to look for, this coin could be worth as much as $6,400. Let's talk about why. In 1966, something unusual was happening at the U.S. Mint. Because of a national coin shortage, the Mint decided to stop using mint marks on coins for a few years. That means if you look at a 1966 penny, you won't see a little letter under the date, no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, and no P for Philadelphia either. All coins from 1965 to 1967 were made without mint marks, no matter where they were produced. So, if your 1966 penny doesn't have a mint mark, don't worry, that's totally normal. Now here's where it gets interesting. Even though there were over 2.1 billion of these pennies made in 1966, some of them are worth a lot more than just 1 cent. But the value isn't because of a mint mark or a major error. The real value comes down to condition, how perfect the coin is. Coins that have been in your pocket, wallet, or a coin jar for years are usually scratched, dirty, or faded. Collectors call those circulated coins, and they're usually only worth face value. But if you happen to find a 1966 penny that looks shiny, flawless, and brand new, that's a different story. These are called uncirculated coins, and they were never used as money. Instead, they were saved right after they were made and stored in a way that protected them from damage. The best ones still have their original red color and glossy surface, what collectors call mint luster. Coins like that can get a very high grade from professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. These companies look at every tiny detail under magnification and give the coin a number between 1 and 70. A coin that gets a grade of MS 66 or MS 67 red, mint state with original red color, is considered extremely high quality. And that's where the big value comes in. A 1966 penny in top condition has sold for as much as $6,400 at auction. That's a huge amount of money for a coin that originally cost just a penny. So, what should you be looking for? Here's a quick checklist to help you spot a valuable 1966 penny. No mint mark under the date, this is normal for 1966. A bright, coppery red color with no signs of turning brown or dull. Sharp details on Lincoln's face and hair, everything should be crisp and clear. Flip the coin over and check the Lincoln Memorial. Look closely at the steps and edges. You should be able to see clean lines and no blurriness. The coin should have no scratches, nicks, or dirt. It should look almost perfect. Even though millions of these pennies were made, finding one that has stayed in mint condition for over 50 years is really rare. That's why collectors are willing to pay thousands for the best ones. The 1969 no-mint mark Lincoln penny might seem like just another old coin you find lying around, but if you look closely, it could be worth thousands of dollars. That's because some of these coins were made with a rare and dramatic error known as a double die, and it's one of the most famous in U.S. coin collecting history. Let's talk about what makes this coin so special. First of all, when we say, no mint mark, we mean there's no small letter underneath the date on the front of the coin. That's totally normal for pennies made in Philadelphia during this time. The Philadelphia Mint didn't use a mint mark in 1969, so if you see a 1969 penny without a D or S under the date, don't worry, that's exactly how it was supposed to be. Now, on to the good stuff, the double die. A double die happens when the design on the die, that's the metal piece that stamps the coin, is impressed twice, but just slightly off. That tiny misalignment can cause parts of the coin's design to look like they've been stamped twice. It's not a coin being struck 2 times, that's a different kind of error. This one happens during the making of the die itself, which means every coin made from that die will have the same doubling. On the 1969 double die penny, the doubling is especially easy to spot. It shows up most clearly in the word liberty on the left side of the coin. The phrase, "In God We Trust," along the top. And sometimes even in the date, 1969. If you notice that these letters or numbers look thick, shadowed, or like they've been stamped twice, you might be looking at one of these rare error coins. And no, you don't need a microscope. The doubling on these coins is strong enough to see with your eyes, which is part of what makes them so famous. So, how much are they worth? Well, one of these 1969 double die pennies sold at auction for around $5,700, and that's not even the highest price. Coins in better condition, especially those with their original red color and mint luster, have sold for $10,000, $20,000, or even more. The better the condition and the stronger the doubling, the more a collector is willing to pay. If you're going through your change, here's what to do: look for a 1969 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Check the Liberty and In God We Trust for thick, doubled letters. Examine the date. If the numbers look doubled too, that's another good sign. See what kind of shape the coin is in. If it's shiny, red, and scratch-free, it could be very valuable. Even if you're not sure, it's worth setting the coin aside and comparing it to pictures of known 1969 double die examples. You can also take it to a coin dealer or have it graded by a service like PCGS or NGC for expert advice. This is one of those coins that proves valuable finds can be hiding in plain sight, right in your pocket, a drawer, or an old coin jar at home. Coming in at number 5 is the 1970 no mint mark Lincoln penny, and trust me, this one is definitely worth a second look. At first glance, it might not seem like anything special. It's a regular 1-cent coin with no mint mark, meaning it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. In 1970, Philadelphia still didn't use mint marks on pennies, so seeing just the date without a D or S underneath is totally normal. But here's where things get exciting: this penny has 2 different versions, and one of them is much more valuable than the other. We're talking about the small date versus large date varieties. These 2 versions look nearly the same to most people, but to coin collectors, the difference is a big deal, and the small date is the one you really want to find. So, how do you tell the difference? Let's start with the 1970 on the front of the coin. On the large date, the numbers look a little bolder, especially the 7. It has a longer tail and curves down more. On the small date, the numbers are slimmer, and the 7 doesn't dip down as much. Also, the 0 in the date is rounder and sits higher, more in line with the other numbers. Another clue: on the small date, the top of the 9 and the 7 are about level with the other digits. On the large date, the 7 sticks up higher. It might take a few comparisons to spot the difference, but once you see it, it's hard to miss. Now, why does this matter? The small date 1970 penny is much harder to find. The U.S. Mint didn't make nearly as many of them, especially in Philadelphia. So when you find one, and especially if it's in great condition, you've got something valuable on your hands. How valuable? A 1970 small date penny with no mint mark, in mint state condition with its full red color and no signs of wear, can be worth $5,500 or more. That's a serious payday for a single cent. Even coins in slightly lower condition can still be worth hundreds. Here's what to look for: no mint mark under the date, which is normal for Philadelphia coins. Check the style of the numbers in the year, 1970. Look for the small date version, slimmer numbers, especially the 7, and a more level appearance across the digits. Inspect the color and shine. You want a bright, red copper look, which means the coin hasn't been circulated or damaged. Look for sharp details on Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. If the coin still has clean lines and no scratches, you might be holding a gem. To be sure, it helps to compare your coin side by side with known images of both the small date and large date varieties. And if you think you found the rare one, consider getting it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. So, don't just glance over your 1970 pennies, especially if they're from Philadelphia. That little date detail could be the key to a coin worth thousands. Next up is the 1972 no mint mark Lincoln penny, and let me tell you, this coin is a real showstopper for collectors. Why? Because it features one of the boldest and most famous double die errors in U.S. coin history. Let's start with the basics. If you have a 1972 penny with no mint mark, that means it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. In that year, over 2.5 billion pennies were produced at that facility, so the coin itself isn't rare, unless it has something special going on. And that something special is the double die error. This type of error happens during the minting process, when the coin's design is stamped onto the die more than once, but just slightly out of line. That slight misalignment results in a very noticeable doubling effect on the coin itself. And in the case of the 1972 penny, that doubling is big, bold, and easy to spot, even without a magnifying glass. Here's what to look for: check the word Liberty on the left side of the coin. If the letters look doubled, like they have a shadow or were stamped twice, that's a big clue. Now look at the phrase, "In God We Trust," at the top. You should see clear, strong doubling in those letters too. Finally, check the date, 1972. On error coins, you'll see some serious doubling in those numbers. This isn't one of those tiny errors you need a microscope for. The doubling on the most valuable 1972 pennies is dramatic and very visible with just your eyes. There are actually several different double die varieties from 1972, but the one collectors want most is known as double die obverse number 1. That's the version where the doubling is most extreme and most valuable. Now, let's talk about money. A 1972 no mint mark double die penny in great condition, with sharp details, full red color, and no signs of wear, can be worth up to $3,200. Even if it's not in perfect shape, if it shows strong doubling, it can still be worth hundreds. So what should you do if you think you found one? First, compare your coin to online reference images of the 1972 double die obverse number 1. Look carefully at the shape of the letters and numbers. If you spot clear, thick doubling, you may have something special. Also, check the condition. The more original red luster your coin has, and the fewer scratches or marks, the more valuable it will be. If your coin is clean and shows strong doubling, you might want to get it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. A certified grade not only confirms its authenticity but also boosts its resale value. The best part? These coins still turn up in old coin jars, rolls of pennies, or even pocket change. That's what makes them so fun to hunt for. So next time you come across a 1972 penny with no mint mark, don't overlook it. Take a second and really examine those letters and numbers. You could be holding one of the coolest and most valuable error coins out there. Now this one right here, the 1975 D Lincoln penny, is a coin that surprises a lot of people. Most of the time, if you find a 1975 D penny, it's only worth a cent. You'll see millions of them out there with that little D mint mark just under the date, showing it was made at the Denver Mint. They're super common, and usually nothing special. But here's where it gets interesting. A few of these pennies have something different about them. And that, something different, can make them worth a lot more than 1 cent, we're talking up to $10,000 in some cases. So what makes these rare 1975 D pennies so valuable? Let's break it down. Some of these coins have what are called die adjustment strikes. That's when the coin press wasn't working perfectly. The mint would run a few test coins to make sure the pressure and alignment were just right. Sometimes these test coins weren't supposed to be released, but a few slipped out into circulation. These can look a bit light or faded because not enough pressure was used to stamp the coin design fully. Another rare feature found on some 1975 D pennies is an off-center strike. This is when the coin wasn't properly lined up in the press. Instead of being centered like normal, part of the design is shifted to one side. The more off-center it is, especially if you can still see the full date and mint mark, the more valuable it can be. There's also the possibility that some 1975 D pennies were struck using experimental dies or planchets. Those are the blank metal discs that become coins. That's pretty rare, but if it happened, those coins would be extremely valuable to collectors. But here's the key, for any of these error types to be worth big money, the coin needs to be in excellent condition. That means no heavy scratches, dirt, or damage. Collectors love coins that are graded MS, mint state, especially MS 65 and above. That grade shows the coin is basically in perfect or near perfect shape, just like it looked the day it was made. So, to spot a valuable 1975 D penny, here's what to look for. That small D under the date. Any signs that the design is off-center or misaligned. If the details look faint or incomplete, it could be a die adjustment strike. Super clean condition, little to no wear. Even if you're not sure what kind of error it is, if the penny looks unusual in any way, it's a good idea to have it checked by a professional coin grader or a reputable coin dealer. Sometimes the smallest detail makes a huge difference. And remember, while most 1975 D pennies are only worth a penny, a rare few have sold for thousands of dollars, especially with unique minting errors and top-grade quality. In 1984, something pretty strange happened to Lincoln's face on the penny. If you have a 1984 penny, take a close look at Honest Abe's ear, because that year, a doubled ear error made Lincoln look like he had 2 ears on one side of his head. Sounds bizarre, right? But that little mistake makes these coins extremely valuable, and some have been known to fetch up to $9,200 at auction. This is one of the most famous modern mint errors, and it's become a legend among coin collectors. So, what happened? Let's break it down. In 1984, the U.S. Mint made a big minting mistake when creating some of the Lincoln Memorial pennies. Instead of a clean, single strike for Lincoln's face, the design was doubled, and it's most noticeable around his ear. This doubling caused the image of his ear to look like there were 2 ears, one normal and another that seems like a shadow, a second impression of the original ear design. Now, why is this so exciting for collectors? Well, errors like this don't happen every day. When a coin is stamped, it's supposed to get a single, clean impression of the design. But in this case, the design was struck twice, creating a clear doubling effect. The result was a doubled ear, which is easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. If you have a 1984 penny and you notice Lincoln's ear looks off, like there are 2 ears where there should be 1, you might have a doubled ear penny on your hands. It's one of those errors that's bold and easy to see, even without a magnifying glass. And here's the kicker, this mistake has become a collector's legend. It's one of those coins that coin hunters actively look for, and if you have one in good condition, it can be worth a lot of money. Coins in mint condition, meaning they still have that fresh, red color with no signs of wear, have sold for as much as $9,200. Even if the coin isn't perfect, it can still be worth hundreds, depending on the extent of the doubling and the overall condition. So, how do you spot one of these rare pennies? Look at Lincoln's ear, that's where the magic happens. If you see a second ear that looks like a shadow or faint outline beside the first one, that's your doubling error. It's the most obvious and easiest to spot feature. Examine the overall strike. A good example of this error will have clear, strong details all around Lincoln's face, with no wear or fading. If the coin is in great shape with a sharp strike, it's definitely worth a closer look. Check the rest of the coin. Sometimes, the doubling error isn't just limited to the ear. Look for other doubled features in the lettering or date, although the ear is the most prominent part of this particular error. If you find a 1984 penny with this error, it's a good idea to get it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. They'll confirm if the coin is authentic and assign a grade, which will help you determine its true value. Next up is the 1987 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny. Now, this one may not hit the 5-figure range like some other coins we've talked about, but it's still a valuable find for collectors. In top condition, a 1987 penny with no mint mark can be worth about $200 or more. So, what makes this coin stand out? Well, like many valuable coins, it all comes down to condition. Here's the deal, the 1987 penny was produced in Philadelphia, which is why it doesn't have a mint mark. Coins minted in Philadelphia during this time didn't include one. Normally, a 1987 penny is worth just 1 cent, but the key to its value is how well it has been preserved. While most of the 1987 pennies are circulated, meaning they've been passed around, dropped, and handled over the years, the ones that are still in great condition are the ones that hold real value. If you have a 1987 penny that looks like it's just been pulled out of a fresh mint roll, that is, it's got no scratches, dings, or discoloration, it could be worth a lot more than just a penny. Coins with no signs of wear, especially those that still have their shiny red color, are highly sought after by collectors. The value of a 1987 penny really jumps when it's in mint condition. Some collectors pay up to $200 for a well-preserved penny because finding one without blemishes or wear marks is pretty rare. So how do you know if your 1987 penny could be worth something? Here are a few things to look out for. No mint mark. If your penny has no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia. You might already know this, but it's a good reminder. This is a key detail, especially since coins from Philadelphia that year didn't have that extra mark. Shiny red color. The more red and fresh the penny looks, the more valuable it could be. Over time, pennies tend to fade or turn brown. So, if you find one that still looks like it was just made, bright, shiny red with no fading, it's a keeper. Sharp details. Look at Lincoln's portrait and the details on the memorial. If they're clear and sharp, that's a good sign the penny was protected from wear and tear. A clean, crisp strike means it has been well preserved. No scratches or dings. If your penny doesn't have any scratches, dings, or fingerprints, that's a huge bonus. Those kinds of marks can lower the value of a coin. So, a perfectly clean penny is more valuable. If your 1987 penny meets these standards, it's worth considering getting it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. These companies specialize in evaluating coins and assigning them a grade, which helps you know exactly how much your coin is worth. Grading can really increase the value of the coin, especially if it's in top condition. The 1987 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny may not be one of the biggest money makers in the world of coins, but it's a hidden gem for those who love collecting rare pennies. If you happen to come across one in great shape, it could be worth a nice chunk of change. And finally, let's talk about the 1992 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny, but with a twist. This one's really special and could be worth over $20,000. Why? Well, it's all about something called the close AM reverse. So, here's what makes this penny stand out. Normally, on the back of the penny, in the word America, there's a noticeable space between the A and M. This space is standard on most pennies from that year. However, in 1992, there was a rare batch of pennies where the A and M were close together, almost touching. This is what we call the close AM reverse variety, and it's an extremely rare error. Coins with this error are so rare that they've been known to sell for as much as $20,000 or even more. Now, let's break down why this close AM reverse is such a big deal. First, let's talk about the normal version of the 1992 penny. Most of them have a wide space between the A and M in America. But in the case of the close AM variety, that space is much smaller, the letters are almost touching, which makes this penny a one-of-a-kind find. Why does this matter? Well, collectors love finding coins with minting errors like this because they're so hard to come by. Coins that are different from the standard design are usually more valuable. The close AM penny from 1992 is a perfect example of how a small mistake can turn a coin into a major treasure. If you have a 1992 penny with the close AM reverse, you've got something very valuable on your hands. But how do you spot one? Here's how. Check the back of the penny. Focus on the word America. On the close AM variety, the A and M are much closer than usual. Normally, there's a noticeable space between the letters, but with the close AM, they'll look like they're almost touching or overlapping. Compare it to other 1992 pennies. If you have a regular 1992 penny, look at the A and M in America, there should be a wide space between them. If your penny looks different with the letters almost touching, you've got the close AM error. Look for other details. The rest of the coin will look normal, except for that key difference in the reverse. If everything else looks standard, it's most likely the close AM error you found. Coins with this error are so rare that they often sell for huge amounts at auction. Some have been sold for over $20,000, depending on their condition. So, if you find one of these, it's worth taking a closer look and possibly having it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. Grading will help you determine the coin's condition and its exact value. To sum it up, the 1992 no-mint marked Lincoln penny with the close AM reverse is one of the rarest and most valuable coins in modern U.S. coinage. If you find one of these, you've definitely got a collector's dream on your hands. So, next time you're looking through your pennies, don't forget to check for that close space between the A and M in America. You never know, you might just find a $20,000 penny. And there you have it, 10 Lincoln cents that could be hiding in your change jar and are worth way more than a penny. Remember, it's all about the details, mint marks, doubling, color, and condition. Which of these coins have you come across? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more money-making coin content. Until next time, happy collecting.